What's going on, everyone? Darkside Phil here with a special video. And usually when I play a game that's on the older side, and what I mean is a game that's maybe like a classic or a retro game, or a game that maybe had an HD re-release, and so I played it. For example, I just played Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 back in January. But typically I don't talk about it afterwards, and I definitely don't review it. And so today I wanted to make a special video because I just completed playing Silent Hill 2 HD, as well as it's the sub-scenario of Silent Hill 2 that was included in the collector's edition of the game. It's actually in here as well. And I had never played the Silent Hill series of games until just recently when I played Silent Hill Downpour. And as I was playing that game, lots of people were like, Phil, don't judge the Silent Hill series based off of this game. Some of the older Silent Hill installments were actually much better than this, and much different than this. And so when the Silent Hill HD collection came out, I said, you know what, I'm going to jump on this opportunity to try it. And a lot of people say and still hold to their belief that Silent Hill 2 is the best survival horror game ever made. And of course, again, being I had never played it, I could never say that. I had played survival horror. I played Resident Evil 1 when it was brand new. So, that was pretty much the whole immersion of that genre happened with Resident Evil 1. And I did play Resident Evil 2. I skipped 3 because at that point I wasn't playing PlayStation games, but I did play some of 4. And obviously I have a playthrough of 5 up, so obviously I played that. And there have been other survival horror games over the years, like Dead Space, that I have dabbled in, but I had never played a game in the Silent Hill series. So, what do I think of Silent Hill 2? Well, the first thing I want to say is, obviously, in this video, I'm going to be talking about general plot points and things from the game. So if you have not played the game, or, you're planning on playing it, spoiler alert, there might be some spoilers to the plot and references to the plot in this video. What I would say is go watch the playthrough first. Go watch the playthrough of Silent Hill 2 and then come back and watch this video, okay? The thing that gets me about Silent Hill 2 in comparison to a lot of other survival horror games is that it's not necessarily the creatures or the monsters that are after you that's the scary part of the game. The game overall is a suspenseful, just horrifying story about some things that have happened in the past regarding the characters who were in Silent Hill. And as the story unfolds, sometimes through direct explanation and reference, and sometimes through side illusion and your own deduction, you kind of figure out what happened to these characters. And it's awesome to be able to have a story where you feel like you're figuring out the story over the course of the game. One thing I really liked about this game was, unlike pretty much every other freaking game on the planet, you find optional things. You'll find, oh, I found a memo here. Oh, I found a newspaper clipping here. And a lot of games you read them and they're not really related to what's going on, or it's like a side content story that no one really cares about. In Silent Hill 2, all those things that you find are directly related to the plot. So by reading them and by understanding them and paying attention to them, you're actually adding to the overall experience of the game. And what they actually end up being, now this is where it's going to be part of the spoiler, a lot of that content is the side story of what happens with the supporting cast, like Angela, Eddie, Laura. You find out why they're in Silent Hill, you find out what happened to them previously in their lives, and you wouldn't really know that until the very end of the game when you actually find tombstones with their names on them, and you finally see their last names, and their last names are the same last name as some of the people in the articles and stuff that you've been reading over the course of the game, and you go, ah, now it all makes sense. But yeah, really, it's not the monsters primarily that scare you in this game. In fact, to be honest, just counting off the top of my head, I think there's only about 5 different kinds of monsters, not involving, boss monsters like Pyramid Head, for example, but there's probably only 5 different monsters in the game. None of them really give you, jump scares so much, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, but even when they do, it's more like, oh shit, there they are, and they're coming for you, more rather than, the soundtrack goes, and it tries to scare you with the sound of the soundtrack, like all these cheap-ass horror movies try to do these days. It's more of an overwhelming psychological fear of being trapped. The visibility is a big part in this game, not being able to see in front of you in the beginning of the game when there's fog in the town, later on in the game when it's night and it's pitch black. The darkness to light contrast when you have the flashlight on and off, and the fact that the monsters can't really see you that well with the light off, but you also can't fucking see anything, and it looks scary as hell. The fact that a lot of the shots, the angles and shots in the hallways are like very narrow turns, so you may turn and you have no idea if there's going to be something right around that corner that's going to come after you, and you just sometimes you get scared because you don't know what's around that next bend. The puzzles in the game, some of them I didn't really like. I thought they were kind of lame. But some of them I thought were really, really neat. To the point where, like, I really liked, like, this. There's a puzzle where, again, spoiler, there's a puzzle where there's 6 people who apparently were hung for crimes, and then it's your job to figure out which one was the innocent one, and you have to read through their past stories, and then you find out one of them was actually framed by the sheriff of the town. That's the innocent one. You have to go pull that certain guy's noose. So that's what I like about it. It's like an immersive story, and yeah, there is puzzles and side things in it, but they're part of the immersion of the story. And you know, I think this is one of the few games where after playing it, it kind of all came together and made sense. I didn't really necessarily see any plot holes. The only plot holes, of course, and this happens with every survival horror game, is how the hell is it that people are teleporting around the town and, okay, I just unlocked 42 doors, went through 20 things that blew up or burned down, and all of a sudden, here's this guy that I met earlier in the game. How the fuck did he get ahead of me in wherever I am? But I think that's kind of the supernatural aspect of Silent Hill, is that the whole idea behind the town is that it's always morphing and changing, and what you see in the town isn't necessarily what that other person standing right next to you is seeing at that same time. In fact, it's actually cool the several times in this game that direct reference is made. There's times when the main character, James, is talking to this little girl, Laura, and he's like, this is no place to be, this place is full of monsters. And she's like, what are you talking about? Because in her, what she can see, she doesn't see the monsters. Because you know, she's not being tormented like James is over the course of this game. She's not guilty, per se. But yeah, I really thought that was a really cool reference. At the end of the game, again, another spoiler alert for people who haven't played it, but your last run-in with Angela, or is her name Angela, or was it Angelina? It was something like that. But when you run into her the last time in the game, and all of a sudden she's engulfed in flames, and you make a comment, man, it's hot, it's hot as hell in here, and she says, oh, you can finally see the flames? It's always like this for me. So in her version of Silent Hill, everything around her is always on fire, and that's a direct reference to the fact that that's the reason she's in Silent Hill. She burnt down her house and ended up killing her father by burning down the house. So, really awesome the way that all the plot kind of connects in that way and all makes, you know, sense at the end. It's not like, well, that was a neat, creepy story. Of course, 5 things don't make any sense, and I guess I'm just supposed to suspend my disbelief. If you actually follow the story and you follow the rules of Silent Hill, the story makes perfect sense, which is really cool. I like the fact that it actually is open world, even though it really isn't. And what I mean is, you can roam the whole town of Silent Hill, although there are going to be certain things that you're guided towards, and you can kind of walk around looking for items and such, but you're going to end up running into roadblocks and things in the areas that the game doesn't want you to go in. But I still like that fact that you kind of don't know where you're supposed to go. You have no idea if you're running the right way or not. It just adds to this, like, even though you're in an open world, you almost feel claustrophobic at times, because you're like, shit, I'm just stuck where I am, and I don't know where I'm supposed to be going or what the end goal is here. And just the underlying plot, I really think, is really cool. The fact that the people that are in Silent Hill, and this really isn't much of a spoiler, but the people who are in Silent Hill are there for a reason. They've all done horrible things, and whether or not they were really badly intended horrible things, they still did horrible things. And so now this is either their way for atoning for it, or this is because this is their way of punishing themselves for it. And what I would kind of like to see in future not episodes, but I don't know if this ever happened, but maybe see the origins of Silent Hill. How did this town become this supernatural area where people seem to go when they're being tormented by things. And I guess it's kind of explained in Silent Hill 2 if you read, again, if you're reading the side stories. In one case it says that the town had a mass illness and like 67 people died, almost wiped out the whole town. Then you read that in the lake that's in the center of Silent Hill, that boats had sunk and hundreds of people had died, so maybe it's haunted in that respect. I don't know, it's really confusing. It's never really clear cut what happened in Silent Hill to make the town be as it is. And by the way, don't believe that bullshit movie plot. If you saw the Silent Hill movie, it does take a lot of the elements from the Silent Hill games and put them into the movie, but the whole plot and explanation of what's behind Silent Hill in the movie is so convoluted, it has nothing to do with the games. The games definitely are much better than that from the 2 that I've played so far. And the thing that I really liked is that the horror, even though, yeah, there's gore, there's blood, there's people that are dead, but the real horror aspect here is when you realize what some of the creatures represent. Now, again, spoiler alert, but, you know, if you look, most of the creatures in the game, their faces are covered. And I think that's kind of an analogy or some kind of a direct reference to the fact that James killed Mary and probably smothered her with like a pillow or something. And so probably that's a reference that they can't breathe, your face is covered. That's probably why all his enemies look like that, okay? And the fact, oh my god, when I fought Abstract Daddy, that boss, and when I realized what the fuck it was, and I kind of don't want to spoil, but obviously if you watch this, you probably already played the game, you know what it is. Holy fucking shit, that was fucked up. That is one of the most fucked up moments I think I've ever seen in a game. And I've seen some fucked up shit. That was fucked, okay? And I guess that's the difference between these games that claim they're survival horror, but really what they are more just jump scare action games, while this game is about real horror. Real horror is a startling realization of this monster you've been fighting for the past 5 minutes, what it represents, and the horrendous things that have happened to the people in this game in their past. Whoa, that was a moment of just sheer horror, and that was fucking cool. So, Silent Hill 2, in my opinion, definitely one of my favorite survival horror games. I would probably say that this game and Resident Evil are very, very good for completely different reasons. Excuse me one second, my phone's vibrating, nothing important. Completely different reasons. Like Resident Evil was the master of the jump scare, but also it was just this feeling that you never had a lot of life, you never had a lot of healing items, you never had a lot of ammo, you never knew what was coming around the next corner. And some of it was jump scares, like in Resident Evil 1, if anyone who's played it, when you're in that first hallway in the mansion, the dog bursts through the fucking window and scares the living shit out of you, and you're fucking pissing shit into the air. I mean, that's cool, that's scary, because you don't expect it. But later on in the game, again, it becomes a more psychological deal. But in that game, the horror is more based off of the enemies that are coming at you. It's not really based off of an underlying plot. In this game, the plot is everything. So, if you want to ask me which game has the better story, I'd probably say overall, Silent Hill 2, by far, has the better story. But if you want to ask me which one had the better gameplay, I think Resident Evil had a lot more gameplay. It was more about the combat and such. In this game, it's a lot more about just running past as much as you can and getting from point A to point B, you know, fleshing out the story, doing puzzles. And there are some necessary fights like the boss battles, but it's not really focused on that. I think Resident Evil was more focused on the action and the gameplay, and so in that case, I actually think the gameplay of that game is better than Silent Hill 2. But in my opinion, definitely a tie for what I think is one of my favorite you know, survival horror games of all time, probably tied with Resident Evil 1. But I definitely recommend to anyone who has not played it that you should play it. Of course, if you watch this video, I've already spoiled the whole plot, so you probably are like, fuck, now I'm not going to play it because Phil just told me the whole plot of the game. But there's still some really creepy shit in it, and it's still worth a play. Now, some people have asked me, oh, Phil, what are you going to play Silent Hill 3? And the bottom line is, from what people are telling me, thank God my fans give me really good feedback, they told me that Silent Hill 3 is actually a direct sequel to Silent Hill 1. And so if you don't play 1, 3 won't really make sense. So I've also heard from my fans, and I hope that this is true, that in April of 2012, Silent Hill 1 is going to become available as a free download for PlayStation Plus owners. So what I probably will do is download Silent Hill 1 during that time, and then during some downtime play Silent Hill 1, so that later on, during more downtime, I can play Silent Hill 3. And that way I'll have experienced the original trilogy, which people say are the 3 best ones. That after 3, the whole series just went downhill. So yeah, that is something I am planning to do in the future, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it. And by the way, thank you everyone who watched the playthrough of Silent Hill 2 HD, and who gave me very positive feedback. Some people are saying it's one of their favorite playthroughs that I've ever done, because I've never really done a true survival horror game, and this one is really, you know, geared towards people who are more psychological, and the fact that I figured out as I'm playing, I'm figuring out what the plot is, and it's not like I'm confused or scratching my head, gee, I don't understand, you know, I actually got everything that was going on. I think people really enjoyed that. So thank you for the positive comments, for the compliments, and again, if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you watch it. It's one of my favorite, probably one of my favorite games that I've played in quite a long time, and I'm glad that I took some time out to play it. So, okay, so that's it for my thoughts on Silent Hill 2. Really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I'll see you guys for more gameplay very soon. Thanks a lot for tuning into this video. See you later.